Good afternoon, good
Hello.
evening, everybody. How are you? We are here with Rockin the Love.
Yes, we are. I'm Robyn,
And I'm Gil.
and Gil is multitasking. This
Oh, I'm
is how
trying to
you
turn
know
up my
when
volume.
he tries to figure out what's going on while he's doing something else. So we are here as Rockin the Love, and we are so glad that you are here with us. We are excited today to be talking about authenticity, the grand illusion.
Hola,
How?
Myrna.
Go ahead, use your Spanish, buddy.
Hola, hola. Gracias. That's it. That's all I got.
That
Okay.
is not. He's a good high school rememberer. Anyway, hola Myrna, hola anybody who's joining us from anywhere. So if you are actually, follow Myrna. Put something in the chat. Say hello. Let us know what's going on, where you're calling from, listening from, and and we'll be sure and talk back with you. We like to talk back, don't we?
Yes.
Talking back is our forte. Okay, so again, authenticity, the grand illusion. We are coming to you from two separate locations. However, we are married, aren't we?
And we live one life because that's how it works. Anyway,
Okay.
because aren't we all living one life?
Yes. But if we're all living one life, there's a few people I need to check in with to help me pay my bills. So there you go.
Wow, we have Fiona with us
Welcome, Fiona. Thanks for
from
watching from Geneva. That's
Wow, thank you so
fantastic.
much for joining us today.
Yes. So, how's your week been, Mr. Olmsted?
It has been good. Lots going on. Um, I've, gosh, I can't even tell you what I've done. It's just been nutty. Gathering things for the new place and running around picking up a lot of stuff. And I've now washed a load of my own clothes in my own washer and dryer. It was very exciting.
Woohoo!
Um, yeah, no kidding. Woohoo. Ah,
Yeah, that going back to a laundromat after you've lived in a house or had those modern conveniences, even in an apartment with it right downstairs, but going into a laundromat, that's a whole social ex- expression of something. It's a
it's interesting, and not to mention the fact that it's a whole monetary adventure.
yeah, it's a lot of money, but I mean it's just I don't know. It's a whole different, what do you call it? Like social.
It's a it's a it's a whole different group of people.
Yeah, but it's like if your car breaks down and then you have to take the bus and you haven't taken the bus in, 10 years or something. It's like
Right.
it's a whole different learning. It's a whole different, I don't know, expression of your life.
Yeah.
Very humbling, I would say, in particular. But
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. The biggest thing, I mean, the nice thing about a laundromat is you throw it all in at once.
that's true.
You don't have to wait for one load to finish to do another load, so that's kind of nice. However, you do have to be there the whole time, so that's the negative side. So anyway, I managed to get those things installed. We got beds. We've been working on setting up the room, um, and lots going on with work and things here at Rio Grande. So it's all happening. How about you?
I have had an interesting week, and actually, Myrna has been part of my week. Lots of meetings and lots of things, and somehow I'm extremely called to this topic right now of authenticity, just because what I really realized this week, and I won't even take credit for it because somebody else said it, and I was like, yeah, that's what I want. But I was like, I don't have time to fool around and not be authentic, you know? And that doesn't mean, well, we'll talk about what it means actually. So, but I mean, I just don't have time to to waste on doing things I don't want to do, and finding myself places I don't want to be, and having conversations I don't want to have, you know. And
Yeah.
not that those aren't necessary sometimes, but that's what I think we'll talk about a little bit, you know, because that is about what our show's about. It's about our relationship to everything. And, you know, where can we be sometimes in that situation and in the love and doing what we might not want to do and make it authentic to who we are. It's an interesting balance. So we will get to that right after we hear the good news. What good news do you have this week for us?
Well, it's good news if you are a preteen or teen, I believe. For us who are acting in a parental role, it's a little disconcerting. So there's a new study that came out that video gaming is not associated with harming preteens' brains. And they did this with kids doing 2.5 to 4.5 hours of games a day. And what they came up with was the only ones who were impacted at all were the ones that didn't do their homework because they were busy gaming. The one, and that didn't impact their brain so much as they just didn't do as well in school. But it was also really fascinating because, let me put on my glasses so I can tell you where. Here we go. The other interesting thing was that they found that the various games that have been developed to help kids, you know, increase their brain power and be smarter, they don't do anything either.
Ah,
So that was kind of fascinating. But so one more thing that was really surprising, that above average time spent playing video games actually showed an increase in intelligence in the kids. So
but you just said it didn't. Oh,
it didn't affect, it didn't harm their brains.
but if the game was meant to, okay, I'm not gonna try
Yeah,
to.
no, this is above average time playing any video games, no matter what you do, would increase intelligence. However, watching TV or social media was neither positive nor negative on the intelligence. So, yeah, so what it says is, I guess, you know, kids playing games isn't as bad as I thought it was, and that perhaps it's an individual thing as to who can benefit, who's ready for it and who's not, and all those questions. Then they did say to watch for obsessive behavior.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I understand that. Okay. And I'm not going to debate the good news here because it's just the good.
It's just good news. It's
just,
different than what we're used to. I just thought it was fascinating.
it is fascinating. And for that reason, I decided to do a story very similar to what I did last week. And I thought about it. I was like, oh, I can't do this. It was similar to what I did last week. But then I thought, no, it's a reinforcement that people are good. People are really good. So this is a story about an 8-year-old in Arkansas who and his family who love going to Waffle House on Saturday morning, and they have their favorite seat and they have their favorite waiter and all of that. And long story short, his favorite waiter, a man by the name of Devon, I believe, and his name is Kazan. He went in and they were talking and chit chatting, and he's known him for years, and he was talking about how hard it was that he didn't have a car and making ends meet for his daughter and his 2 daughters. And Kazan went home and said, that's not right, that people have to live like that, and started a GoFundMe. And the other day when I got the story, it was at 70,000. I rechecked it today and it's at 100,000 for his favorite waiter.
And this was started by an 8-year-old?
Yep.
You go.
Yeah.
He didn't know that kind of stuff doesn't work.
What do you mean?
He didn't realize that, you know, that's you just don't do that. You don't ask people for money for something like that. I mean, why would you do that? right?
You're talking about like the social norms.
Right.
Well, he started it with his family. I mean, his whole family worked on it.
Yeah, but I just mean,
Yeah.
a kid would go, well, we can do something about that. Let's think of let's do it, and not have the thing of, well, that doesn't really work because, and all those things.
Right.
I think
There
it's
are no
great.
boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think it's great though. And I think like, and in the same way of what you're saying, I think it's great that, and a little child shall lead them. I'm sure, his parents and family had to be somewhat open
Oh yeah.
or if they weren't, they learned from him what's possible. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's really a whole family standing in that place of, amazingness. So that's the good news. There are
Yes.
people out
Wow.
there that are listening and watching and doing what they can. So
But my question is, how many hours a day of video games does this 8-year-old play? That's
he's probably creating a game based on
he's probably building a game. That's right.
Yes. So that's the good news. And we will be right back. Think about your definition of authenticity while we are listening to some words from New Thought Media Network.
Learn to live the life of your dreams in Beyond Limits. It's our foundational class in the teachings of New Thought, Ancient Wisdom. It starts on March 7th. It's going to be 10 Tuesday evenings, and this is a transformational program. It's open to everyone. It's the intro class, so there are no prerequisites. During the time that we're in class, you'll learn the powerful practical tools for everyday miracles, for creative thinking, for meditation, for practical prayer and empowered intentions, and much, much more. You'll open yourself to an experience that's far greater than anything you have previously imagined. It is your opportunity to release the splendor that's locked within you. The program includes the Practical Prayer for Real Results workshop on Saturday afternoon, March 25th, which is an opportunity to dive deep into the techniques of practical prayer so that you can create a brand new experience in your life. Registration is open now. I look forward to seeing you in class.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
welcome back to Rockin the Love. I'm Robyn.
And I'm Gil, and we're glad that you're with us today.
We are.
Woo.
And in our last segment, we gave the good news. And one of the stories that Gil told was about a study that shows that video games does not affect intelligence. Is that correct?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't harm brain development.
It doesn't harm brain development.
It may increase the intelligence.
Okay. And Myrna said, I am open to listening to this news. Not sure I can believe them yet. And
I get that.
And I get that too. And I mean, I was thinking about that. That's why I was really trying to decide what the study was on, because I think there's so many different effects of video games that they're not talking about, whatever else may come up for a person like socialization or, whatever. So I agree, Myrna. I'm hanging in there, listening, waiting for more results. So we are back, and it's time to talk about authenticity.
Okay.
What a topic.
What a topic.
We hear that word a lot. We hear authenticity, be authentic, find your authentic self. And what does that mean? What does that mean? Do you have a definition you would give?
I do actually have one here. Authenticity means you're true to your own personality, values, and spirit, regardless of the pressure that you're under to act otherwise. You're honest with yourself and others, and you take responsibility for your mistakes.
Yes.
Your values, ideals, and actions align.
Yes. I have definitions similar to that as well. Yeah, and then I have a philosophical definition, and then
Philosophical.
a psychological definition from the psychology dictionary. Who knew there was a psychology dictionary? But there is. So I'm going to just share that one says authenticity is a technical term in existential philosophy and is also used in the philosophy of art and psychology. In philosophy, the conscious self is seen as coming to terms with being in a material world and with encountering external forces, pressures, and influences which are very different from and other than itself. Which is similar to what you said. I mean, it's talking about being true to your own spirit, character,
Right. Values, personality. Yeah.
And the psychological definition says the quality of being genuine and true to one's own values too, in psychotherapy and counseling, a valued characteristic of the therapist who must be considered to be genuine and caring. Authenticity is often demonstrated by a professional but down-to-earth attitude that the client senses is a true person and not simply of the therapist acting in his or her professional role. And there's some more, but interesting.
I have another thing that authenticity comes from the same Latin, the Latin word that means author. And it says, so being authentic doesn't mean being honest about who you are. It's about being your own author.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Authenticity is an active and creative process. Woo!
Well, yeah, isn't it all? So what does so in our relationships and in your life, what would you say? How does authenticity show up for you?
Well, I think for me the concept is being I think being true to my own values. It's leaning into situations where I feel things are that I can get behind and I can support, and it's leaning away from those places where it doesn't work for me, and not trying to figure out what other people want me to do or what I think other people think that I should do. or be.
Right. 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 That makes sense. So, stay here. Stop reading.
I'm here. I'm listening. I'm waiting for you to talk.
Yeah.
Authentically, we're having a moment.
Well, I'm thinking about what you said. I'm thinking about what you said. I think that, I mean, I, for me, I don't know. I was thinking, is authenticity, I mean, is authenticity, is it a noun? Is it a verb? How do we, I mean, I feel like it's all of that, because I feel like we, if we say we're living it, then we're in action, even though it's something that is sort of just there as a core.
Well,
Because
when you say
it's
being
related to our
authentic,
core values.
when you say being authentic, you are putting it putting it with the verb. So of being. So yes, if authenticity is about being involved in the creative process or about authoring your own life, that becomes an activity.
Right. So the title of our show was Authenticity, the Grand Illusion. And what did that mean to you?
Um, well, I think it's the idea for me. It's the idea that, well, what is my authentic self? That it's rather elusive, um, and the reality is I think it changes over time. Um, However, I think the idea that, they're being authentic is a little bit stretching it. I mean, I think we're all being, um, as best we can, authentic and honest about who we are and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not sure we really are. So that's
Yeah,
what I felt about it when I looked at that title.
right. And I'm going to tell you what I think too. But Myrna says, Brene Brown says, authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we are supposed to be and embracing who we are.
Indeed, indeed.
Indeed. And so for me, the title meant more at the time when we thought of it. It was like, can one really be authentic and be totally honest? Can one be authentic and be totally honest? If you, I'm making this up, but if you were, if you have, I don't know, if your boss has bad breath or something,
Mm-hmm.
and you just go up and go, you have bad breath. I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't know if that's even a great
Well,
example.
I think
Go
the
ahead.
question becomes, there's a difference between being honest and what's your authentic self. If my authentic self is to be compassionate and caring about people, and I walk up and say, you have bad breath, that's a fact, and it's a true fact, and I'm being honest about it, but I'm not being authentic to who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would come up and say, hey, I don't know if you realize this, but
Right.
or offer them a mint or something, that you see what I'm saying? I mean,
I do.
and you can twist that however it applies to a particular person or a particular situation, but I think, um, honesty and telling the truth is one thing, but then you have to weigh that with who am I? What are my values? What's important to me? What do I think the world needs? All that stuff. Did
So
I throw you off?
No, not at all. So
Okay.
what I'm hearing is that it's possible to be dishonest and authentic at the same time. And I don't know that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying. I actually found an article on something like that that said it's possible to be authentically dishonest, meaning to tell lies in a way that feel true to oneself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and that are in alignment with one's own values. I mean, if one's own values is that the truth doesn't matter, then you can be totally authentic in telling lies. In theory, right? That's being who you are. That if you don't have a value on truth and honesty, if that's one of your values though, and you're in a situation where you feel like you have to lie in order to appease someone or whatever it is, then that's going to be conflicting because you're not going to feel like you're being authentic.
Well, I also, I mean, if
So,
honesty,
oh, 1 second. I'm sorry. Myrna would like to talk, but she doesn't have a microphone. Thank
send
you,
her a
Myrna.
link. Send her a link. She can come in. On it, but so it, how? So okay. So here's some ways that honesty that I'm talking about, like honesty affecting dishonesty affecting it. Like if the needs of an individual, like if you might get fired for admitting to a minor mistake at work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's possible. I mean, and this I'm this is from the article I read, like talking about the possibilities of when this occurs, when people are honestly dishonest. Is that the word? Or
Mm-hmm.
dishonest, authentically dishonest.
Authentically dishonest.
Yeah, or like when like self-deception makes honesty impossible, like somebody lying to themselves, a widower lying to himself about his wife's death has not affected him,
Right.
and he keeps repeating that same lie to other people, right?
Okay, so what's the difference between a lie and an affirmation?
Is this a trick question?
No, I was just thinking about the example you used, when someone says, "Yeah, I'm all right, I'm
All
good,"
right.
you know? And are we trying to focus on the good and that aspect of life, and that was why we used the affirmation concept, I am good, or am I really being inauthentic about how I'm feeling and how I'm doing?
Right. Right. Um,
So Myrna says perhaps authenticity could mean to share from one's own values and beliefs, as long as it does not harm anyone.
yes. And I think also, I mean, we're talking about ourselves, right? So as long as it's not harming yourself, it's not taking you out of the true your true core values, or it's not. Uh, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out like the times when I've been inauthentic in some way,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure when that is. Maybe you know. I mean, I don't. I mean, because for me in my mind, like even if I'm like, I don't want to go, I don't want to be there, I don't want to talk to people. When I get there, then I go, okay, well, here I am. So I'm here. Let me be
Mm-hmm.
here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't think. I'm not saying I haven't been inauthentic, but I can't think of when I have been.
Right. Right.
I don't know. Maybe it's inauthentic. Maybe I'm inauthentic a lot. Maybe I'm inauthentic when, you know, I'm in certain meetings. I think I'm channeling Myrna. Hold on. When I'm in certain meetings and things where it's really not in the best interest to speak up in front of everybody, and or I just don't want to. Those times when maybe we all hold our tongue, even though we have feelings, and then they just kind of spiral and grow.
Well, I think, yeah, right. And there are times when somebody says, "Oh, is that okay with you?" And we go, "Oh, yeah, sure." And inside we're feeling resentful or whatever else. And so we haven't been authentic about what's going on within us. Or we feel like they're taking something that, or they're not, I don't know, it's incongruent with who we are. We don't want to participate in it or whatever it is, but we'll go along with it. And I think that's where you hit an authenticity thing. It's not so much that you're lying about it, it's that it doesn't work. It doesn't match up.
Right.
And so I think it brings up a really interesting point, because you think about someone who's a sociopath or something, and are they inauthentic? I think, somebody may be totally authentic, that they really don't have any feelings, and so they don't have any whatever, and that it's not that they're not authentic, it's that they don't have the same values I have.
Right.
I think sometimes we confuse that, like everyone should have the same values I have, and they don't necessarily. I mean, that's an extreme example, but we don't all have the same tenets that we hang on to. And I think part of authenticity for an individual, for me, is to get myself to understand, what are the values I have, who do I want to be, and then be that instead of not being that, instead of somehow doing something else.
Yeah. And I think that's the first key to finding, to knowing your authentic self, is that self knowing. If you're like, oh, am I being my authentic self, or how do I do this, or how can I do it better? I think that is the beginning, is to really begin to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And your core values, because sometimes we grow up in situations that don't allow us to know our core values exactly, because we've grown up listening to somebody say, I'll use my sister as an example. I remember all through high school, she was so anti-Kennedy. And the region I live in, we're very pro-Kennedy, and that's all I had heard my whole life about Kennedy, and what how amazing he was, and the Camelot era and all those things, and all of that. And then she got to college, and she started doing her own research and reading, and realized that was my teacher's story. And in high school, her class, that he talked about that all the time, and how bad this was and how bad that was. And so she really took that on as like, this is bad, and stuck with that. It's not really supposed to be, though, is it?
Well, but it's forming an opinion, and even then acting on certain things in your life.
Right.
And so you're being authentic, but you haven't really discovered the truth about what you're talking about, or for you haven't really done the research to know whether it lines up with your real values.
Right.
You just assume it does because someone said so.
Right. Okay. So go ahead.
I'm gonna say, so Myrna says, I like what Brene Brown says, letting go of who we think we're supposed to be. So I could throw a wrench in this if you'd like. Would you like me to do that?
Sure.
Just for fun?
Would you like to do that?
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Okay.
So this statement says authenticity is a slippery thing. Although most people would define authenticity as acting in accordance with your idiosyncratic set of qualities and beliefs and values, research has shown that people feel most authentic when they conform to a particular set of socially approved qualities, such as being extroverted, emotionally stable, conscientious, intellectual, and agreeable. This is the paradox of authenticity. In order to reap the many of the benefits of feeling authentic, you may have to betray your true nature. Whoa. What do you think of that? So feeling, to have the feeling of being authentic is when we're conforming, and that then we may not actually be then expressing our own values. So we may not be actually being authentic.
So tell me why we're conforming.
Because that's when we feel most authentic. Because we feel like we're doing the right thing, where we must be okay, other people approve, whatever that thing is that makes us feel like, oh, this is good, this is who I am. I thought it was a really fascinating statement.
Well, it is a fascinating statement. And if we truly believe what we learn in New Thought, science of mind, any kind of metaphysical thing, then our belief is that we come fully equipped in the good, that we are all good, that God is good, that there is no negative that way. And so how could that be true? Because then
we have a guest. Hello,
we have a
Myrna.
guest. You too can pop in.
Ask and you shall receive.
Go.
Yeah, so how can that be? How can that be true? Because we're really just going back to ourselves, if that is true.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't stump me.
Well,
Foxy.
I tried. So what are you thinking, Myrna? I know those fingers were getting a little tired.
I know.
But
I was like, oh, come on. I need a microphone. I can't wait to answer this. I like what you said previously before I share the Brene Brown. And this is, I'm kind of cheating, but I like what you said in the authenticity. And then I went on to the global theme, especially of the month. And it talks about authenticity. So I'm pulling information from there. It's not my words, of course, but it's making me think. The last statement that you made or comment, it made me question, because I'm like, wait a minute. So the norms and going through society really makes me more authentic? Or can you repeat that whole thing? Because I was like, well, if I supposed to be, and I'm gonna talk about like a woman, you're supposed to be certain ways and all the stuff and blah blah blah, or the mom, or as a wife, or as this what I supposed to be. And if I let go of all that, then how can I really show up in the world? That would be probably a different way. I don't know.
Well, but that's you raise a great point in that question, because what is our authentic self? If I ask you, who are you, Myrna? And you say, I'm a mom and I'm blah 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 blah. I graduated from college. Is that your authentic self? Your authentic self speaks to your core, who you are. The others are titles and can be taken away from you, right? I mean, you know what I mean,
right?
Whereas, who are you? What do you believe in, and how do you stand in that? And I think actually, this is a great topic to continue with next week as well, because I really think we haven't even got to how do you show up authentically in relationships. We haven't even got there, and we're almost done. So, I'd love to have you back if you would like next week and maybe some other
Bring
couple.
more panel. Bring a whole discussion group. This is
Yeah.
a conversation for many people, for many points of view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, how do we show up authentically in our relationship? So yeah. So I diverged into two other things while I was talking about your question. But I mean,
Well,
my point is, how do you be? What is our authentic self?
yeah, that's a really valid question, and I think we struggle with that. You know, we can say, yeah, let's be authentic, but you know, and I was trying to think about the other way, like who, not specifically who, but where do I think people are being inauthentic? You know, where does that show up? And you know, when somebody has to tell you what their education is every time you talk to them, or mention that, you know, oh, that's Dr. So and so, you know, or whatever. And somehow that feels, on a repeated basis, that starts to feel like, well, what's that got to do with who you are? It doesn't feel like that's really about who you are. It's about something else, you know? But yet it is who they are. So,
And is who they are, or is it who the world told them they should be?
right.
You
Well,
know, go ahead.
I was thinking about what you said earlier, Robyn, when you might go somewhere and you really didn't want to go, but then you went there and you're like, oh, okay, I'm here. And then you said, oh, then probably I'm being inauthentic. And it made me question to perhaps things that I have said yes when I really didn't want to say no, or vice versa, because perhaps I don't want to rock the boat, or I don't want anybody to get offended, or I just want to keep the peace.
Or it's easier to do it than to explain why you don't want to do it.
Right. And so I was like, wow, is it a combination of authenticity and inauthenticity? Like we rock that boat because I mean we have to travel and maneuver in this thing called life. The term authenticity, with being a little unauthentic in certain areas for whatever reason is, to be accepted in society, to be accepted in meetings, to not hurt feelings, to get my husband not to get mad at me because I don't want to do something, but I know he is, there's something about it. It's a really, really great topic that I thank you for bringing it on. I am more grateful for joining you over here. But it's really making me question, because at this moment I'm actually going through something that I'm like, okay, am I being authentic by doing something maybe I really, really don't want to do it, and just to keep the peace and whatever is good for the whole situation? But as you, Reverend Gil, you also say about feelings. So it's like, how am I being authentic on my feelings, to my brain, to, is this whole enchilada, whatever's cold? I don't know.
Yeah, it becomes it's like a snowball. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You know,
Yeah.
to figure it out. And I think it's really important because, and especially in our relationships, you know, I mean, because our personal family love relationships, you know, and our work relationships, obviously. But I mean, when we're with people we love, we don't want to hurt them. We don't want them to get upset. And at what cost do we take that on sometimes? And and get lost.
And what, how does that affect a relationship? You know, is that the kind of thing that eventually leads to, for instance, divorce, in part because somebody holds back on that, and pretty soon they resent it, and pretty soon, because they haven't been authentic, that I don't really like that. It's like in the show, Robyn, we watched the other night, Firefly Lane. they came back together, and then they started being totally honest and telling each other the things that bugged them about the other person. You know, you don't have to do that. I don't like it. You don't like that? You know, I mean,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, all this stuff was like they'd been holding on to it for all this time, you know, and not being clear, not being authentic. You know, if I can authentically go, yeah, that doesn't bother me. I don't, you know, I don't do it that way, but that doesn't bother me. That's one thing. But if it really does, then that's another topic. You know, or I really think for me, it feels like it's outside the bounds of decency or something, you know, somehow.
But you talk about, for example, the example of the breath, and your commitment was to be, you know, and kind, or that was part of your values, right? And then if you are talking to somebody and you said, if you tell her or him, whatever it is, that is what is happening, is it about, or not telling him, is it, are you being authentic and authentic? Are you being honest, dishonest? It's like this little combination of it. Where do we draw the line between being authentic and honest, inauthentic, dishonest?
Yeah, and does honesty equal authenticity?
Yeah. I do think that you can be dishonest and authentic. I don't know that I would have thought that before doing this research, but I don't. I mean, I think it's because I really think, you know, like you used the example when we were talking about the topic of like Gil, of saying, you know, oh yeah, honey, that dress looks great on you, when it doesn't.
Right.
You know, and you don't want to hurt feelings, but there is, as you said earlier, there is a way you could say that looks nice, but there's other things that probably look better, you know, or some version of that, however you would say it. And I think for us, not us, but I mean, I think when you're in the position of checking in with yourself and seeing if you're being authentic, you know, I think it's about letting go of the judgments you have about what you're saying and what you have to do. And if there's a lot of judgment and thought around there, you know, can you take responsibility for the action and feel good about it, or feel like it was kind, or it was loving, or it was honest? You know what I mean? I mean, and all, whatever your core values are, does it live into that place that keeps you being your authentic self? That's at your absolute core. You know what I mean?
Something that struck me, you know, I said a minute ago about just thinking about where do I have the feeling that someone is inauthentic, and I was just sitting there thinking that when there's people that I feel are really inauthentic, I don't trust them. I don't trust what they say. I don't trust what they do. And I'm thinking it's interesting. There's some kind of connection between trust and authenticity, because if I can't know that what I'm getting, what feedback I'm getting or whatever, has some validity in truth and whatever, then I don't feel connected. So when someone is inauthentic, in my opinion, I tend to draw back and feel disconnected from them. I don't know how exactly that all fits in the conversation, but I think it's interesting.
But I think that's true. I think that, I mean, like we all have that. I mean, if we feel like someone is inauthentic, we usually don't feel like they're being honest or truthful in some manner. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true. And I think you know, at the core of that, you know, I I looked at a lot of self-esteem stuff, and I think it has to do with self-esteem, because just like Brene Brown, I mean, it's about, you know, loving yourself and all of that, and really being able to claim your core values and know what they are. Because I mean, you know, we haven't even touched on how much society affects it, if that's possible, or your family origin, your parents, you know, what you grew up with, just the damn TV, you know, all of those things.
I want to go back to Myrna's quote from Brene Brown. Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we are supposed to be and embracing who we are. And I think part I was getting at was I start to feel like the other person is playing a part of some kind. and so they can change the part they want to play at any time. So it's not really, it's you know, like it's so anyway, so that's where the honesty and the other part meet. You know, if someone hasn't been honest with themselves about who they are and they're playing this part, as Brene Brown says, you know, instead of letting go of who they think they're supposed to be, but they're hanging on to that, then that creates a whole kind of disconnect.
Well, yeah, and then the thing I think for us is to turn that around, because yeah, they can change it, but like how what do we do with it? How do we view somebody that we
Yep.
find inauthentic?
And how do we stand in authenticity
Well, but
with
also,
that person?
but also, you know, Robyn Gil, you said trust and authenticity, and I was like, ooh, I know I have experienced that. Somebody that in Robyn and I together have that too. So I think, as you said, like when we don't know who we are, and it has happened to all of us, except me. No, I'm kidding. There comes a point where even if we could discover who we are never who we think we are, because we keep changing. Life is about evolving. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, and then I'll stop right there. I'm not. So the values that I perhaps had when I was 20, when I was 30, now that I'm 40 something, it's different. And does that make me inauthentic when I was 20 versus what I am now? I think it keeps evolving. Does it mean that maybe my mother doesn't trust me now because she thinks that I was this person, but I am not anymore? I think it's this whole of I'm just thinking or feeling that I don't think can we ever reach authenticity at its 100%, based that we moving, we keep going, we believe with disbelief, we connect with disconnect, all that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, so but at the bottom of that, even when you were whatever you were 20 years ago, even when we all were 20, 30, and had those different aspects to ourselves, were our core values the same? Did we believe in kindness? Were we not hurting anyone? Were we loving, and you know, all those things? And there's so much to it. I totally agree with you that it's changing, but I still think that at your core, these are the core values we really come into the world with on some level. And I think that's why so many people find spirituality and new thought and religion, even that because they're looking to return to the core of who they are. And that's my belief right now. And I think this is a great conversation, and it's come to an end.
No. Next
Yeah,
week,
but
core beliefs
next
to
week,
authenticity.
it's authentically on the way over. But I think next week, really trying to stay in the relationship. Like, how do you bring that into the relationship? Because I really think, along with what you just said, Myrna, that's where we start to pick up the stuff that makes us not always know exactly who we are. Right? So we hope you'll join us next week, Myrna and everybody else. And
I would like to thank our surprise guest. Thank you for coming, Myrna. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to our fine producer, Michael Mangus, who facilitated getting her in the door. Appreciate that.
it takes a
Thank you,
village.
Michael.
It takes a village to rock the love. So we're glad for Michael. We're glad for Myrna. And we're glad for all of you listening to us. And we hope you'll join us next week right here on New Thought Media Network.